Welcome to Woman's Secret Signals, where we break down real relationship psychology that most people never talk about. Now, listen carefully because this topic can change the entire direction of your relationship. When people hear the word disrespect, they immediately think about big dramatic actions like shouting, cheating, or public humiliation. But in reality, disrespect in relationships is often much quieter and much more dangerous. It starts with tone changes, ignoring your opinion, dismissing your feelings, sarcastic replies, or consistently making you feel less important in the relationship. And here's the truth most people don't understand. Disrespect is not always about anger. It's about patterns. One mistake is not disrespect, but repeated behavior without correction becomes a pattern. And that pattern shapes how your partner sees you. Now, before we go deeper, let's be clear about something important. This is not about blaming one gender or creating division. Respect issues can happen in any relationship from either side. This is about understanding behavior and protecting emotional balance. Psychologically, when respect starts to weaken, attraction also starts to weaken, because respect is the foundation of emotional safety. And without emotional safety, love slowly becomes frustration. Many people ignore early signs because they hope things will fix themselves. But relationships don't fix themselves. People fix them through awareness, communication, and boundaries. In this video, I'm going to break down 5 powerful keys that help you respond correctly when disrespect appears in a relationship. Not with anger, not with control, but with emotional intelligence and strength. Because the goal is not to win against your partner, the goal is to protect the quality of your relationship before it breaks down completely. Now let's move into the first key. The first key to addressing disrespect in any relationship is simple but powerful. Stop reacting to moments and start recognizing patterns. Most people destroy their relationships because they overreact to isolated incidents. One bad tone, one argument, one sarcastic comment, and suddenly it becomes a war. But emotionally intelligent people look deeper. They ask, is this a one-time emotional reaction or a repeated behavioral pattern? Because emotions change daily. People can be stressed, tired, or overwhelmed, but patterns reveal personality direction. For example, if your partner is occasionally rude during stress, that's emotion. But if they consistently dismiss your voice, interrupt you, or mock your opinions, that's a pattern. And patterns are where respect either grows or dies. Psychologically, the brain tends to normalize what it sees repeatedly. So, if disrespect is small but constant, your mind slowly starts accepting it as normal relationship behavior. That's where danger begins. Now, here's your responsibility. Observe without emotional distortion. Don't label everything as disrespect, and don't ignore real disrespect either. You need clarity, not confusion. Write mentally. What behaviors repeat? How do I feel after most interactions? Do I feel valued or drained? Because your emotional consistency is a signal. Your feelings are not random, they are feedback. When you identify patterns correctly, you stop blaming yourself unnecessarily. And you also stop excusing harmful behavior. This is not about paranoia, it's about awareness. Because you cannot fix what you refuse to see clearly. And once you see the pattern, you are ready for the second key, how to respond without losing your emotional control. The second key is where most people fail, setting boundaries without emotional chaos. Let's be honest, when someone disrespects you, your first reaction is usually anger, arguments, or emotional withdrawal. But none of these create lasting change. What actually creates change is clear boundaries delivered with calm confidence. A boundary is not a threat. It's not control. It's simply a standard for how you allow yourself to be treated. For example, instead of shouting, "Don't talk to me like that," a stronger response is, "I'm happy to continue this conversation when we're speaking respectfully." Notice the difference. One is emotional explosion. The other is emotional leadership. Boundaries work because they create consequence awareness without aggression. Now here's the psychology behind it. When you stay calm while setting limits, you show emotional stability. and emotional stability is naturally respected, even if the other person doesn't like the boundary. But consistency is everything. A boundary without follow through is just a suggestion. If disrespect continues and you ignore it every time, your boundary loses meaning, so you must be consistent, not aggressive. Also, avoid over explaining. Many people weaken their boundaries by justifying them too much. You don't need a long speech, you need clarity. Boundaries should sound simple, direct, and calm. And most importantly, boundaries are not about controlling your partner, they are about protecting your emotional dignity. Because when respect disappears, love cannot survive for long in a healthy form. Now let's move to the third key: how communication can either fix the problem or make it worse. One of the biggest mistakes in relationships is attacking the person instead of addressing the behavior. When disrespect happens, people often say things like, "You are disrespectful." "You never respect me." "You are toxic." But this triggers defensiveness immediately because now the person feels attacked, not understood. The smarter approach is focus on behavior, not identity. Instead of blaming character, describe the specific action. For example, when my opinion gets interrupted in conversations, I feel unheard. When sarcasm is used during serious talks, it feels dismissive. This changes everything. Why? Because behavior can be corrected. Identity feels like an attack. Psychologically, people resist labels but respond better to specific feedback. When you describe actions, you create room for awareness instead of conflict. Another powerful communication rule is timing. Do not communicate serious issues during emotional peaks. Wait until things are calm. Emotional timing determines whether your message is received or rejected. Also, use I statements instead of you accusations. This keeps the conversation grounded in your experience rather than blaming the other person. But here is the truth many avoid. If someone repeatedly ignores your communication, even after clarity and calm expression, the issue is no longer misunderstanding. It becomes unwillingness, and that leads directly into deeper emotional decisions. Because communication is powerful, but only when both sides are willing to listen. Now, let's move to the fourth key: emotional detachment without losing connection. The fourth key is emotional detachment with self respect. Detachment does not mean you stop caring, it means you stop overreacting and overinvesting in unhealthy cycles. When disrespect continues despite communication and boundaries, emotional detachment becomes protection, not punishment. You stop chasing validation, you stop repeating arguments, you stop trying to force understanding. Instead, you observe behavior from a calm distance. This creates a psychological shift. You regain control of your emotional stability. Now, the fifth and final key is decision clarity. At some point, you must ask yourself a serious question: is this relationship improving with awareness or repeating with no change? Because love without respect becomes emotional exhaustion. And no relationship should consistently drain your self worth. Decision clarity means choosing based on patterns, not hope. Many people stay stuck because they believe things will magically improve, but real change only happens when behavior changes consistently. Sometimes the strongest decision is not staying or leaving, it is redefining expectations and refusing to accept less than emotional respect. To conclude, respect is not demanded through anger. It is built through awareness, boundaries, communication, and emotional strength. If you apply these 5 keys: recognize patterns, set calm boundaries, communicate behavior clearly, stay emotionally strong, make clear decisions, you stop reacting emotionally and start responding intelligently. And that is where real relationship transformation begins, because the goal is not control, the goal is mutual respect, emotional safety, and long term peace.